Hello everyone, this is Joe Lamport and welcome to the second program in our podcast, The Westward Journey, Adventures in Monkey Mind. And we're really excited to come back to you after a brief summer holiday.
And I'm joining Joe. This is Dr. Tony Stern, and we're excited to be here to continue our conversation.
Today's show is called Meeting with Love, and we're really thrilled to have our first guest with here in the studio today.
And that's Dr. George Love, who's a Qigong master and licensed acupuncturist and doctor of Oriental medicine.
Great. Well, Tony, before we get to the love part of today's program, I thought maybe it would be good for us to pick up a little bit
Sure.
on some of the things we were talking about in our first show. And in particular, I want to revisit one issue. We explained to everyone the title for our show, The Westward Journey, comes from the great Chinese novel of self-discovery, The Journey to the West, in which that journey to the West is really understood or described as the journey to enlightenment. And what I want to just touch on before we get to our guest is explore this idea of enlightenment a little bit further, because as you know, there are a lot of people who think that that's really the wrong word to be using in this spiritual context. And I was wondering if you're one of those people who thinks of himself as enlightenment phobic, if you will.
Not exactly. I think rose by any other name still smells as sweet. There are certainly some people like to use the word awakening. Some people say that the whole thing is a kind of hoax or semi-hoax, but part of what we're here to discover is what enlightenment or awakening does mean, and I'm hoping Dr. Love helps us, helps clarify that point.
Well, love has always been viewed as close to enlightenment, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth just exploring this a little bit further in the sense that, you know, in everyday conversation, I know we're often put off by people who come across as presuming that they've somehow attained enlightenment, that whether it's in a chat room online or just in a casual conversation with friends, it seems a little bit presumptuous when someone presents themselves to the world. And that's the difference, I guess, between thinking of it as a journey or an attainment, right? If we think of the Westward Journey as a journey towards enlightenment, it's not as if anybody is really saying that we've arrived.
True. There are certain people out there over the last 50 years and way before that who have said, I've arrived. That's probably premature for any mortal to say, in my opinion, but that's something that we can explore further. I would say that there are a lot of different terms for the goal of the spiritual journey in the West. One of them that Jesus used was the pearl of great price, or the kingdom of heaven itself. So there are a lot of different, I would say, meaningfully tantalizing discoveries up ahead.
Well, now you're straying onto the grounds of language, which is, of course, the translator's domain. And I would just point out that, you know, one of the origins of this debate about using the phrase or the word enlightenment as opposed to awakening goes back to a historical decision that translators in the West started to use when they first started translating Eastern wisdom texts in the 19th century. And one of the choices that was made then, and that has been criticized extensively in more current years, recent years, is the use of the word enlightenment as the way of translating the Sanskrit term bodhi. So in the Eastern literature, bodhi is more typically understood to mean awakening as
or
opposed
waking
to
up.
Waking up,
yes, yeah.
Part of what I find interesting about this is that the choice of the word enlightenment in some ways was probably quite deliberate.